Hello everyone, welcome to What If Quirkless Deku was Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Technique User Movie 1. Before we start, please go support PresidentThanos for writing that awesome fanfic. After thousands upon thousands of years, the world of sorcerers and curses was dying out due to the hope inspired by the heroes, and few remained. Izuku Midoriya, quirkless boy and ignorant sorcerer. He had no quirk, yet he knew he was different, had power. His dream had been denied by even his idol, yet he rushed headlong into danger despite of it. During his unintentional act of heroics, he used his curse technique to save a boy he should have hated. Seeing this, his idol gave him his true answer, giving him a quirk of his own. Armed with both an exceptional quirk and a powerful curse technique, he will climb the ranks of heroes while protecting the innocent from threats few could see. Unlike usual, Izuku will be given one for all along with his other power. Chapter 1 Discovery PT1. I'm sorry, but no. You cannot be a hero without a quirk. Shattered. That's what the words did to Izuku Midoriya's fragile view of himself and his dream. For years he had held on to the belief that his idol, his hero, would support him. For years this belief is what got him up in the morning. All Might. While it is honorable, I suggest becoming a police officer or a fireman. It's okay to chase your dreams, just make sure it's a dream you can survive. With that said, the skeletal form of the number one hero began to walk by, patting Izuku on the shoulder as he left. Izuku heard the door to the staircase open as his idol left him to think about what the man had said. Izuku stood there for several minutes, simply processing the conversation he had just had. Though Izuku also recalled an odd detail about All Might. The man seemed to not only let off steam when he transformed, but a bluish energy as well. Deep within his mind, an old memory resurfaced. Within a hospital, two people sat in front of a doctor in his office, Izuku Midoriya and her son, Izuku. Doctor. Well, the test results are back. Izuku. Really? What's the result? The doctor sighed and sat up straight. Doctor. Unfortunately, your son here will not be gaining a quirk. The toy Izuku was holding fell to the ground as he heard the news. It began to levitate as Izuku used her own quirk to pull the toy to her hand. Izuku. How so? The man pointed to the X-ray of Izuku's foot he had printed off. Doctor. See this? How there's two joints in the pinky toe. People with quirks don't have this second joint. Think of it as a streamlined version of the human body. Izuku. Oh, I see. Is that all? Doctor. Unless he needs some sort of emergency care, yes it is. Izuku. Right. Come on, Izuku, we should get going. She stood up and took her son's hand as he got off of his chair. As they walked towards the door, Izuku looked back to the doctor to see something strange. There was a creature behind the doctor. It was misshapen and ugly, as well as having several arms and sharpened teeth. The doctor seemed to notice both it, and that Izuku saw it too. A grin grew on the doctor's face as a strange blue energy emerged from the monster. Before Izuku could say a thing, he and Izuku left the room fully. A few minutes later, the two were in their car and driving home when Izuku spoke up. Izuku. Mom? Izuku. Why yes, honey. Izuku. Do you think the doctor's okay? Izuku. I'm sure he is, why? Izuku. That monster behind him looked really mean. To his surprise, his mother responded instantly and spoke quickly. Izuku. There was no monster. He had seen the energy All Might had let out before, way back in his childhood, before his life went bad. He knew what he needed to do, he needed to know what that stuff was, he needed to track down All Might again. But how? Suddenly, an explosion was heard and its force was felt. Izuku turned his head towards it to see a cloud of smoke in the distance, as well as more explosions going off. Izuku. A villain attack? Deciding to check it out in case All Might was headed there too, he rushed through the building's stairwell and out onto the street. He ran straight towards the explosions to find something he never expected. His childhood friend turned relentless bully, Katsuki Bakugo, was being held hostage, a sludge villain he knew All Might had captured just earlier. Then he remembered the events that led to his talk with All Might. He had leapt onto All Might as the hero leapt away, all while the villain was contained in a soda bottle in the hero's pockets. It must have been then that the villain escaped. He had been the reason this man was free once more. Izuku. No. It's my fault. He brought his hand to his mouth as Hus' breathing picked up. It was then he looked to the villain once more, and then Bakugo's face. His peer was terrified, fearing for his life and flailing blindly in hopes to escape. Suddenly, something flipped inside Izuku's brain. Before he could think, Izuku's feet began to move on their own. It started as a walk but soon turned to a full-on sprint. The heroes on duty had no chance to stop him as he ran through Backdraft's water barricade. Their calls fell on deaf ears as Izuku ran faster than ever before. The sludge villain then noticed him. SV. You again? Get away. He swung at Izuku, only for Izuku to duck under the elongated punch. Thinking quickly, he remembered his notebooks, along with a page about a quirk similar to the villain's. Izuku, quietly. Go for the eyes. He took off his backpack and threw it at the villain's head, a few of his books and supplies making contact with the villain's eyes. Using the time this had bought, Izuku leapt up to where Bakugo was, and began clawing at the slime in a desperate attempt to save his classmate. Bakugo, yelling. Deku? Why the hell are you here? Izuku. I just couldn't watch you die. SV yelling. You little brat. Izuku felt something wrap around him and lift him from his position. He soon found it to be the villain's hand, pulling him away and stopping the rescue. Instead of looking to the villain, however, Izuku maintained eye contact with Bakugo. Another memory crawled its way to the surface. Izuku was blown backwards by an explosion. He slid on the wood chips beneath him. He looked up, tears in his eyes, as Bakugo walked up to him, a smirk on his face. Bakugo. Hasi Deku? Without a quirk, you're nothing. Even a weak one would have done better against me. You're better off working a boring office job than a hero. At least you'll be good at something then. The boy let out a condescending laugh as he walked away. Rage, fear, sadness, disgust. All these emotions were flowing through Izuku's brain at once. He was angry at All Might for declining his dream and at Bakugo for everything he'd done. He was afraid of dying to this villain, and of his efforts being wasted. He is sad because thus meant his mother was alone and Bakugo's parents would lose their only child. He was disgusted that Bakugo of all people was afraid. In all of this, he failed to notice the energy building within him. As if on instinct, he raised his hand up and started using the unnoticed energy, funneling it into a part of his brain. From his hand, a bright yellow lightning began to crackle and dance, though it seemed he was the only one to see it. Izuku yelling. Let him go! He shoved his hand into the sludge, shocking the villain and making him drop both Izuku and Bakugo. Discovery PT2. Izuku rushed over to Bakugo as the sludge villain began to reform himself. Izuku. Kaken, are you okay? Bakugo smacked away Izuku's hand as the green-haired boy tried to help him up. Bakugo, yelling. I'm fine, you damn nerd, pay attention. Izuku turned around just in time to see the next strike heading in their direction, but it never came. SV yelling. No, not you again. Izuku looked to where he thought the slimy fist was coming from, just to see All Might in his muscle form, now leaking the blue energy all over. Izuku determined this meant he was straining himself. All Might. Young Midoriya. I apologize for what I said. I see now that I wasn't living up to my own ideals as a hero. Quietly. Or a sorcerer. Izuku. Sorcerer? All Might paused. All Might, quietly. Damn it. We'll talk later, I promise. But for now. He reeled back his free hand. All Might yelling, Detroit smash. He swung at the villain, the power of his punch creating a vortex that both splattered the sludge everywhere as well as pull in enough clouds to effectively change the weather. It rained for a few seconds before the wind pushed the clouds along. All Might lowered his fist and stood tall. The day was saved. The other heroes quickly moved and the crowd followed to surround All Might. Izuku noticed a hero he recognized as Death Arms compliment Bakugo on his quirk while another hero, Kamui Woods, made his way over to him. Kamui. Kid, that was dangerous. You should have left it to the PR. A large hand was placed on Kamui Woods' shoulder. Both the hero and Izuku looked to see it belonged to All Might. All Might. Now, there's no need for that. While yes, what you said is true, he had no choice. Instead of jumping in to help, you allowed your weaknesses to blind you. In this case, he is more heroic than you woods. Kamui. Alright. The wooden hero quickly backed off, allowing All Might to speak to Izuku. All Might. Alright, young Midoriya. Tell me something, what do you know of the ability you just used on this villain? Izuku shrugged. Izuku. And nothing. It just happened. All Might sighed. All Might. Of course. Listen, I know what it is, but I cannot tell you here. I will follow you once this has all died down, then I'll explain, okay? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Oh, okay. He turned to leave, but All Might spoke up one last time. All Might. By the way, I'm sorry for what I said on the roof, truly. Instead of answering, Izuku just nodded and kept walking. Izuku sat at his home, an apartment him and his mother live in. Thankfully his father pays for it, even while he works out of the country. He was sitting at his desk, just thinking about what had happened that day, when a knock was heard at the front door. He got up and rushed out, almost running into his mother who was on her way to the door. Inko. Whoa, Izuku, what's going on with you? Izuku. Sorry, Mom, it's just that this might be meant for me. A friend of mine wants to hang out. Inko. HM? A friend? Oh, my baby finally has one. Have fun and be back before it gets too late. She immediately turned around and went back to what she was doing. Izuku too turned around, though he faced the front door now. He walked up to it and opened the door to find All Might in his skinny form waiting for him. All Might. Hey, a kid! Izuku smiled. While he was still mad at All Might, he couldn't just ignore that the #1 hero was on his doorstep. All Might. Come on. There's a lot we need to talk about. Izuku. Right. He stepped out of the apartment and closed the door. All Might then led him down the stairs and out of the building. Izuku. Where are we going? All Might. A nearby park. There's a spot I know that's nice and secluded. A friend of mine is also joining us. Izuku. Why? All Might. I'm not the best at explaining these things. After a few minutes they reached the park and All Might led Izuku to the secluded spot he mentioned. It was an overgrown area with an old bench that had vines and branches tangled in it. Though All Might was right, no one even went near it. Sitting on the bench already was what looked to be a short person with white fur and wearing a suit. All Might. Nizu, sir. Here he is. It was then Izuku recognized him. It wasn't a man with an animal quirk, it was the super intelligent UA principal, Nizu. Nizu. Ah, welcome. Please sit. Izuku sat next to Nizu while All Might stood next to the bench. Nizu. Your name is Izuku Midoriya, yes? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Yes, and you're the principal of UA. I've read a lot of your papers. I'm a big fan. Nizu chuckled. Nizu. It's always nice to meet a fan. But I'm here on serious business. Tell me, do you see this? Nizu held up his hand and the blue energy Izuku keeps seeing appeared. Izuku. Yeah. What is it? Nizu. This is cursed energy. It's created by the negative emotions of humans and other intelligent beings. Izuku. So everyone has it? Then how come when I see it, no one else does? Nizu. Simple, you're different. So am I and All Might. The ones who can see it are known as sorcerers. Izuku. Oh. That's why All Might called himself that earlier. Nizu. Correct. Another question, have you ever seen something you can only describe as a monster? You know it isn't someone with a quirk, but a genuine monster? Izuku. Yeah, but only once. Back when I was 4, my quirk doctor had one behind him. Nizu. Those are cursed spirits. They are created whenever one place gets so saturated with cursed energy that it takes a form. Izuku. That would mean that hospitals would be like hotspots, right? Nizu nodded. Nizu. Yes. Though with the rise of heroes, they've been getting weaker and weaker, along with rarer. All Might. Which is why it's so important that we found you. I'm the symbol of peace. I've carried the hopes and happiness of so many people on my shoulders, but my time is coming to an end. Izuku. Meaning that soon, Japan will be forced to endure without its crutch. Nizu. And curses will become unimaginably stronger. All Might. Which leads to my proposal. He held his hand out to Izuku. All Might. For your heroic actions earlier today, I deem you, Izuku Midoriya, worthy of inheriting my quirk and becoming my successor. Do you accept? Izuku. Huh. Proposition. Izuku. Huh. All Might. You heard me inherit my quirk and become my successor. Izuku looked at him confused. Izuku. But I thought you used this cursed energy stuff. All Might sighed. All Might. I do, but that's just for my technique. Izuku. Technique? Nizu. Allow me. Izuku looked back towards Nizu. Nizu. What All Might is talking about is his cursed technique. It's an ability that's fueled by cursed energy, like the ability you displayed in the fight earlier. Izuku. Oh, then what's All Might's? All Might. Mine's called muscle. It lets me use my cursed energy to inflate my body into a more muscular form. Though it doesn't actually make me much stronger, which is where my quirk comes in. Izuku. So at IS super strength, why do you always dodge the question then? All Might sighed again. All Might. Because it's not that simple. I wasn't born with my quirk. Izuku. What? All Might. As you may have gathered, it was given to me. See, this quirk is special. It's passed on through generations of heroes like a torch. I want you to be its next wielder. Do you accept? It was then he noticed Izuku had begun to mutter up a storm of theories on how it was possible to pass on a quirk. All Might put his hand out on the boy's shoulder, getting Huss' attention once more. All Might. Kid, stop stressing so hard. Even if you say no, I believe you can be a great hero. Izuku. Are you sure? All Might smiled and nodded. All Might. Yes, I am. Izuku began to tear up and hug All Might. Izuku, thank you. He let go and looked up at his idol. Izuku. And I accept. I'll take on this responsibility. All Might. Good, because I wasn't sure who else to give it to. Izuku. Well, when do I get it? All Might. After a lot of training. Your body as is isn't anywhere near being able to handle the power of one for all. Izuku. I see. Nizu. Don't you worry, Midoriya. We'll take care of your training. Izuku. How? Nizu got up from his seat. Nizu. You'll see tomorrow. But no, we will also be training you in your cursed energy use as well. Izuku. But where do I go? Nizu. Nowhere. I'll come get you. Now we must go. See you tomorrow, Midoriya. All Might. Good luck. The two heroes then walked away, leaving Izuku to head home. It was the next morning, which was thankfully not a school day. Izuku was sitting at the table eating breakfast when his mother sat down with her own and spoke up. Inko. Hey, Izuku? Izuku. HM? Yeah, Mom? Inko. I just wanted to ask what exactly you and your friend did yesterday. As she said this, Izuku noticed her look over his shoulder. Izuku. Nothing much. We got smoothies from that smoothie place a block away and really just hung out the rest of the time. She raised her eyebrow. Inko. And nothing else? No strange activities I should know of? Izuku shook his head. Izuku. Nope, nothing at all. She then smiled. Inko. Good, I wouldn't want you getting hurt or anything. Who knows what's out there? Izuku smiled and nodded, though now it was clear she knew much more than she let on. He quickly finished his food and put the plate in the sink. His phone vibrated, so he checked it to find a message from an unknown number, though the person claimed to be Nizu. Nizu, hello young Midoriya, it is me, Nizu. Me and All Might will be there shortly. If you could meet us outside, that would be appreciated. Izuku. Mom, I'm gonna be gone for a bit today. I don't really know when I'll be back. Inko. HM? What are you doing today? As he began explaining, he put his shoes on. Izuku, I agreed to help tutor a classmate's younger brother. All I know is that I'll be back for dinner. He wanted to tell her, but he couldn't, not until she told him about what she knew herself. He began to walk towards the door. Inko, well, look at you making more friends. Have fun then. Izuku, I will. Mom, love you. Inko, love you too. With that said, he left and made his way down to the parking lot of the building. There he found a black car waiting for him. The driver rolled down the window, revealing All Might to be behind the wheel. All Might, get in. Your training starts today. Izuku merely nodded and got in the back where Nizu was waiting for him. Nizu, all right, take us to UA High. All Might, yes, sir. The window rolled back up and the car began to move. As they left the parking lot, Nizu spoke up. Nizu, young Midoriya, you must know that this training will be harsh, especially because of how late in your life you're learning of curses. Izuku nodded. Izuku, I expected as much, but why? Nizu, you see, sorcerers are usually born from sorcerers. There are times where a non-sorcerer family produces a sorcerer, but that is extremely rare. Even then, they often know of their abilities from a young age just from experimenting with their cursed energy. You, however, have not done that and are completely unaware of how to properly use it. Izuku, do you know why? Nizu, I suspect your mother may have played a part in that. Has she ever seemed distracted? Maybe quick to quiet you when you mentioned seeing something? Izuku, yeah, why? Nizu brought his hand, or paw, to his chin. Nizu, I believe it's better if she tells you herself. Just don't let her find out about your training, especially mine and All Might's involvement with it. Izuku, right. After an hour, the car stopped and both Izuku and Nizu stepped out of the car, though All Might stayed inside. All Might, you two go on ahead. I need to go make some final arrangements for young Midoriya's physical training to handle one for all. Nizu, good luck. The skeletal man nodded and drove off. It was then Izuku realized that they were in a wooded area. Izuku, wait, this isn't UA. Nizu, it may not be the building, but I assure you this is part of the campus. Follow me. Izuku did as he was told and followed the small road and deeper into the woods. Training. After several minutes, they reached a small clearing with a large shed on the other side. Around the clearing, what looked to be practice dummies were set up. Izuku also noticed there was another person there, a pink-skinned girl who looked to be his age. Izuku, Nizu, sir? Who is that? Nizu, Mina Ishido. She's going to be training with you as well. She's another sorcerer, though she's been training for years unlike you. Let's get you two introduced before you start training. Izuku, right. The two walked over to the girl, who was practicing kicks and punches on a dummy. Nizu, Mississippi Ishido. Glad to see you're doing well. The girl turned to face them. Mina. Oh, hey Principal Nizu, who's this? Izuku stepped forward. Izuku. Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'll be joining you out here. When he said that, she got really excited. Mina. Really? Finally. She stepped forward and stuck out her hand. Mina. I'm Mina Ishido. I've been training here alone after school for months. Nizu. Yes, but I'm afraid he won't be joining you in any physical training for a while. He also needs to go through some control training too before he fully joins you here. Mina pouted. Mina. Why? Izuku chuckled and scratched the back of his head. Izuku. I just recently learned about curses. To be honest, I don't really know how to use cursed energy. Mina. Oh. I see. Well, I'm sure you'll get the hang of it in no time. Izuku. Thanks. Nizu. And as for his physical training, he has his own training regimen that's working just fine. We should move on now, Midoriya. Izuku nodded and walked with Nizu towards the shed. He waved bye to Mina as they entered. Inside, walls were covered in mounts and shelves, most of which were empty but some held various weapons and other objects. Izuku. So, where are we anyway? That didn't look like what I expected a UA training ground to look like. Nizu walked up to a door and opened it, revealing a set of stairs. Nizu. Well, it isn't one. That is UA's Jujutsu training ground. Ordinarily, sorcerers are sent to the Tokyo or Kyoto schools, meant specifically for sorcerers, but UA is slowly gaining traction in the Jujutsu world. This year, you, Ashido, and 2 other sorcerers will join the hero course. An extra will join the support course. Now come down here with me. Nizu led Izuku down into a basement area that looked a lot like the upstairs, but the items looked much more worn out and dirty. Nizu made his way over to a box, reached inside, and pulled out an odd-looking doll that had obviously seen better days. It was missing an eye, stuffing was poking out in many areas, and it was missing an arm. Other than that, it was regular brown teddy bear, though its remaining arm had a blue boxing glove attached to it. Izuku. Sir? What is that? Nizu. The thing that will help you with your cursed energy control. It's a cursed corpse. It is very old and only 2 still exist. The other helps in exorcising curses. Izuku. What is a cursed corpse? Nizu. That's simple. A cursed corpse is a humanoid inanimate object brought to life by inserting a core fueled by cursed energy. Nizu walked past Izuku and back to the stairs. Nizu. Your training will start back outside. Come. Izuku was getting tired of just following the principal, but he wasn't about to stop. The 2 quickly found their way outside and over to the opposite side of the clearing than Mina. Nizu then tossed the cursed corpse over to Izuku. Nizu. Here. Hold this. Izuku looked at it confused before the object leapt up and punched him in the face, which made him fall. Nizu caught it, and it went back to sleep. Nizu. That is what will happen each time this creature stops getting a flow of cursed energy as it's held. I'm sure you can figure out what your training will be like. Izuku sat up. Izuku. Yeah, work on my control by making sure that thing has cursed energy. But how? I'm not exactly mad or upset right now. Nizu. You will also learn how to constantly have access to your cursed energy even when not feeling negative emotions. That is why we're outside. Try to have a constant flow while being in the calming outdoors environment. That's all. Your training will advance once you've finished this. He tossed the bear at Izuku once more. Nizu. Good luck. I'll be back once I finish some paperwork and drink some tea. With that said, he walked away, a small giggle escaping his mouth as he heard the sound of Izuku getting hit. All might. Hello, young Midoriya, good to see you're taking your other training seriously. Izuku sighed. He had largely just been beaten up for the 5 hours he was at Yui's Jujutsu training ground. He had been able to keep the beast tamed for half a minute, but that ended quickly. Now he was standing on a trash-filled beach with All Might. All Might. Right now your body is not fit for my power. If I were to give it to you now, your head and limbs would blast off. Not even reverse curse technique can heal that. Izuku. So, what exactly are we doing here? All Might. Well, I can't exactly train you in a gym, so instead, you will be cleaning this section of the beach. By the time you clear a path from here to the water, your body will be able to handle my quirk, though just barely, and that is if you follow my 10-month plan to the letter. He handed Izuku a packet which Izuku began to go through. Izuku. Whoa. My meals, my jujutsu training, even my sleep is scheduled. All Might. If we had more time I would be more lenient. But 10 months is all we have, so this will have to do. Your training here will start tomorrow. Go home and be ready. Izuku smiled, nodded, and left. Technique. It had been 2 months since Izuku began his training for both One for All and Jujutsu Sorcery. Through those 2 months he was taught how to consistently create cursed energy alongside how to channel it. Now, he stood in the middle of the clearing that Yui's Jujutsu training ground resided in alongside Mina. In front of the 2 was their teacher Nizu. Nizu. You 2 might be wondering why both of you are here today. It's because from here on, you 2 will be training together. A smile grew on Mina's face. Mina. Finally, I was so bored by myself. What are we doing, sir? Nizu. Training your techniques. Ashido here already has a solid handle on hers. Midoriya, on the other hand, you've used it once and on accident. For the next month, that's what we'll be training for now. Izuku. But sir, I don't know what it is or even how to use it. Nizu. That's where you're wrong, well, partially at least. You may not know what it is, but you do know how to use it. Even sorcerers who started late like yourself were able to use their techniques as easily as any other. Cursed techniques are part of the body, ingrained into the brain. As soon as you use it the first time, it'll be like using an everyday muscle after. Mina. Yeah, trust me, when I was little it was so natural for me that I nearly melted through my bedroom floor in the first week after getting it. Izuku turned to her. Izuku. What is yours anyway? Mina. It's acid. She brought her hand up and started using her technique, making a gray sludge seep from her skin and drip onto the ground. When it hit the dirt, it dissolved some and left a small hole. Izuku. Whoa. Cool. Mina. I know, right, and if I push even more C into it. She stepped back and suddenly her entire body was covered in a transparent version of the acid. She then struck a pose. Mina. I get acid, man. She dropped the technique and took her previous position back. Mina. You ready to try? Izuku nodded. Izuku. But how do I do it? Nizu shrugged. Nizu. It feels different for every sorcerer. Just do what feels right. Izuku nodded and turned his attention to himself. He looked down at his arms as he focused on the energy he had spent 2 months learning to access and use. Focusing on it harder, he felt a sudden realization enter his mind, as if something obvious had just shown itself. Like lightning, his cursed energy shot up to his mind, funneling into a portion of his brain. As soon as it did, his hands became coated in the bright yellow lightning he'd only seen once before. Izuku. I'm doing it. Nizu. Yes, you are. Mina. Whoa, bright. Izuku stopped his energy from flowing into his technique, ending it lightning. Izuku. That felt amazing. Nizu. I'm sure it did. Izuku. I wish I knew the name of it. Nizu. May I suggest a name? Izuku. Suggest a name? Nizu. Yes. This is a technique we haven't seen before, so it needs a name. Izuku. Oh. Then I'm open to suggestions. Nizu. Perfect. How does Raijin sound? Considering the lightning, I believe it's a fitting name. Izuku thought in silence for a moment before looking at his hands. He turned them into fists and looked back to Nizu. Izuku. Yeah, I like it. Raijin it is. Nizu. Good. Now, do either of you know what the best way to train cursed techniques is? Mina excitedly rose her hand. Nizu. Yes, Ishido? Mina sparring. Nizu chuckled and nodded. Nizu. That is correct. What better way to learn than on the fly? What do you say, Midoriya? Up for some friendly sparring? Izuku nodded. Izuku. I need all the training I can get. Nizu smiled. Nizu. Wait here. He walked past the two to the shed and entered. He exited a few minutes later with a wooden staff in his hands. The rodent walked back over to the two with the staff. Nizu. Due to Ishido's experience, she'll be using this quarterstaff instead of her technique. That, and we don't need unnecessary combinations of lightning and acid being flung around. He handed the staff to Mina, who gave it a twirl before smiling and nodding. Nizu. As a bonus, this will also serve as a good form of battle training for you, Midoriya. Now, both of you go to opposite sides of the training field and wait for my signal. He got a nod from both of them before they turned away from each other to do as they were told. Nizu himself backed away to the shed. Once they reached the edge, they turned back around to face each other. Izuku activated his technique in preparation. Nizu yelling. Here are the rules: nothing below the belt, and the eyes are off limits. Anything else can be healed by Recovery Girl using reverse curse technique. He raised his paw. Nizu yelling. And start. He swung his paw down, and the two teenagers charged towards each other. Once they were close, Izuku swung at Mina, but she ducked and used his momentum to make him flip over her back. As he hit the ground, she sent one end of her staff towards the side of his head. Just before she hit him, however, he was able to catch it and pull on the staff, pulling her down to the ground. He then quickly got to his knees and sent another punch her way, but she caught it. Due to his technique, she felt an intense electric shock travel up her arm. Having been training for much longer, and having actually fought curses before, she was able to react quickly and kicked him off of her. As he was recovering, she had already gotten to her feet. She dove at him with him only being able to raise his arms to block her staff. As her staff was being pushed against the back of his forearms, he remembered something Mina had mentioned earlier. Izuku mumbling, "If that's what she meant, then she should just been making more. Unless I see." A confused look appeared on her face as she couldn't quite make out what he was saying. Unbeknownst to her, she had helped Izuku figure out the next step in his technique. He focused on his technique and began to funnel even more cursed energy into it. No one bit Izuku noticed, but the lightning covering his hands became thicker, viscose even. Then, something popped into his mind. He pressed his hands together, and then separated them. His lightning had now stuck together, spread like melted cheese. Surprised, Mina jumped back, letting Izuku stand. He grabbed one end of the lightning and wrapped it around his right hand. He grabbed the other end and quickly pulled both fists apart. At some point the lightning left his left hand and extended on its own, growing to around 5 feet long. Izuku looked upon his newly created lightning whip and smiled. He looked back up to his opponent. "Izuku. Ashido, thanks for the hint." Mina. "Huh!" Before she could ask him what he meant, he charged towards her once more. She raised her staff to defend, but he didn't get close this time. This time he stopped a few feet away and swung his weapon at her. The crackling lightning wrapping around the wooden weapon. He yanked his arm back, wrenching it from her grasp. From there he swung again, though she dodged. The crack from this whip sounding like a crash of thunder. She hit the ground as Izuku swung again, but Nizu stepped in and moved her. "Nizu. Alright, we're done for today." Not expecting this, Izuku deactivated his technique. After helping Mina up, both her and Nizu approached Izuku. "Mina. How'd you do that?" Nizu. "Simple. You showed him your technique laps earlier and he figured it out. He's quite smart. I'd love to test this out fully, but I'm afraid we must end today's session here." Izuku. "Why? I feel fine." As he spoke, he stumbled and almost fell. Nizu. "That is why. You used a lot of cursed energy today, especially considering you've never properly used your technique before. Over time you will learn to use less and to pull back a little as well as increase your amount of energy. Go home and rest. I'll inform your other trainer that you need to rest for today. Have a good day, Midoriya." He nodded as he recovered. He waved goodbye to Mina, who was already looking forward to the next day of training, and headed back to the UA parking lot to get picked up by All Might. Despite his exhaustion, a large smile was plastered on his face. He had learned how to use his technique as well as an advanced form of it in the same day. He was confident in the growth he would make in the next 8 months until the entrance exam. First mission. It had been 8 months since Izuku started his training with Nizu and All Might, 6 since his first spar with Mina where he passed out. This day, Nizu hadn't prepared anything like he usually did. Ordinarily he'd have special dummies set up or even curse tools lined up for Izuku to train with, but not today. Today he had called Izuku and Mina to the center of the training field. In his paws was a box. It was short, but long and wide. Mina. "Mr. Nizu. Why aren't we training today?" Nizu. "Well, that's because today is a big day for young Midoriya." An excited look appeared on her face. Mina. "Really?" "Yes, yes, yes, yes." Izuku looked between the two, confused. Izuku. You excuse me, but what's going on?" Nizu turned back to him and Mina jumped to their teacher's side. Nizu. "Izuku Midoriya, today marks an important step in your journey as both a Jujutsu sorcerer and a hero. It's something young Ashido here has been doing for around a year now. As you may have noticed, there are times when she isn't here." Izuku. "Yeah. I just thought she was with friends or sick at home though. What is it then?" Nizu. She has been going on missions to exorcise cursed spirits. Izuku looked shocked. Izuku. Alone? Nizu nodded and she laughed. Nizu. Due to the nature of our school, some of our staff are also sorcerers and accompany her to do these missions. Though, she has proven time and time again that particular precaution is earned, which is why she's semi-grade 2. As Nizu finished talking, Izuku recalled a time when Nizu described the system the Jujutsu world used to classify how powerful sorcerers and curses were. Izuku. Sir? What grade am I then? Nizu. We'll get to that in a moment. First things first, however, is that you'll be going on these missions alongside Ashido. Do you believe you're ready? Izuku straightened up and nodded. Izuku. Yes, sir. Nizu smiled. Nizu. Good. But in order to go out, you'll need your uniform. Nizu then handed the box to Izuku, who bent down and took it from the rodent. Nizu. Flame-resistant and knife-resistant. Made to allow maximum flexibility and fluid movement. All Might gave us a few ideas on how to customize it to you specifically. Go change in the supply shed, we'll wait out here. Izuku. Right. He ran over to the shed and quickly entered. Mina. I'm so excited. She was bouncing on her toes and Nizu chuckled. Nizu. Just make sure he comes back in one piece. Mina. Yes, sir. After a couple minutes, the shed's door opened once again and Izuku stepped out, wearing his jujutsu uniform. By me. Izuku. It fits really well. He placed a hand on his opposite shoulder and rolled his arm. Izuku. And flexible, just like you said. He walked over to the two before tapping the mouthpiece. Izuku. But what is this? Nizu. One of the customizations. All Might brought me a sketch of a hero costume drawing he said you made. I turned the smile into a top-of-the-line respirator. If you reach behind you, you also have a hood. Izuku did as Nizu suggested and pulled up the hood. Mina. They kinda look like rabbit ears. Nizu. For extra head protection, and the spots on the hood light up with a button on the respirator in case you need more light. Izuku. I like it, thank you. Nizu. Of course. Now, if you reach into your pocket, you'll find a card. Izuku did as he was told and pulled out a small card. He then turned it so he could see what was on it. On it was a picture of him along with some information including his technique. Just below his name was the information he was waiting for. Izuku. I'm grade 3? Nizu nodded. Nizu. Now, if you're ready, you and Ashido have a cursed spirit to exorcise. Izuku. Wait, like now? Mina. Yep, I just gotta change. She then ran towards the shed. Nizu. She'll meet us at the car, come on. Izuku complied and followed their teacher. The car stopped and both Izuku and Mina stepped out. Mina's uniform was very unique, even when compared to other jujutsu uniforms. It had a pink and teal camouflage pattern and a white domino mask. She had also been given pants, which wasn't common for female sorcerers, though her fighting style demanded it. As they stepped out, Nizu rolled down the window and spoke up. Nizu. This cursed spirit is reported to be grade 2. Ordinarily a single grade 2 sorcerer would be dispatched, but we didn't have any on standby. The two of you should be enough. Go inside and I'll put up the curtain. He rolled up the window and drove around the corner, leaving the two alone. They turned around to look at the building they were dropped off in front of. It was a 2-story building, its exterior indicating it used to be a store with an apartment above it. Izuku. So we just go inside? Mina nodded. Mina. She patted his shoulder. Mina. The faster we do this, the sooner we can go home. Izuku took in a breath. Izuku. Right. Let's do this. Mina. That's the spirit, come on. She began to walk and Izuku followed suit. As they entered, Izuku could feel the built-up cursed energy and shivered. Izuku. So this is what it feels like. Mina. HM? Oh. Yeah. I remember my first time doing this. Real creepy feeling. How about Ouija? She had walked around a counter and was about to open a door when it opened incredibly fast. She was able to jump back to avoid getting hit though. Izuku activated his technique, covering his hands in lightning. Slowly, an elongated and bony hand creeped out of the doorway. It was then pressed against the wall, and its owner began to pull itself out of the back area it was in. A green-skinned, six-legged humanoid figure emerged from the doorway. Izuku. That's big. Mina. You're telling me. Izuku pushed more energy into his technique and brought his hands together, ready to form a weapon. As soon as its full body was out of the room and it stood at its full height of 9 feet 5 inches, Mina called out. Mina, now. Izuku gripped his lightning with both hands and pulled them both apart in a straight line, forming a spear. Izuku. Lapse, war lightning spear. He threw it at the spear pinning its body to the door it opened. Mina then rushed forward and splashed acid on its torso, but before she could get more on, it swatted at her, making her duck. Izuku then rushed in and grabbed its arm, sending a devastating electric shock through its system. Now that it was stuck in one place, Mina came back in, leaping over Izuku's head and covering the monster's head in acid, making it dissolve, ending the beast. Izuku stopped his technique as Mina landed and the body fell limply to the floor before fading away. Izuku's companion walked over to him and held out her fist. Mina. Good job, couldn't have done this alone. Izuku. Why, yeah? She grinned brightly as he fist bumped her. Izuku. To be honest, it was exciting. Even though it was a short fight, I had fun. Mina. Yeah. We make a good team, Midori. Izuku became flustered. Izuku. Midori? She laughed. Mina. Yeah, a cool nickname for my cool sorcerer friend. Izuku stayed quiet for a moment. Izuku. Midori, I like it. Mina. Midori it is now, let's go, I know a great smoothie place near UA. Izuku, alright. The two then left the building. Izuku's first mission as a sorcerer was complete. There were many more to go. Entrance exam. Izuku approached the gates of UA. While he had been on the other side many times, he had never actually stepped foot into any part of the actual school. As he was about to walk through the gates, someone bumped into his shoulder, Bakugo. He and Izuku hadn't interacted much since the villain attack. Bakugo. Stay out of my way. Izuku watched as the boy continued to walk. Suddenly, a pink elbow found its way to his shoulder. Mina. Geez. Is that Bakugo guy you mentioned, Midori? Izuku sighed and nodded. Izuku. Why, yeah? Believe it or not, he's toned down quite a bit. Mina. Uh-huh. Well, we should get moving. Got your tools? Izuku nodded and pointed his thumb to his backpack. Izuku. In here and sealed too. Just in case. She stopped leaning on him and began to walk towards UA. Mina. Well? Come on, let's become heroes. Izuku, yeah. The two began their walk into UA, though Mina noticed Izuku was a little sluggish. They signed in and found their seats, which were actually on opposite sides of the auditorium. They were then given the written tests, which they quickly finished. After the other examinees had finished, the tests were taken from them. After a few more minutes, a hero Izuku recognized walked onto the auditorium stage. Present Mike. Hey, welcome little listeners, I'm Present Mike. Here to lay down the rules for today's exam, can I get a hell yeah? Without thinking, both Izuku and Mina stood from their seats. Izuku/Mina yelling, hell yeah. They then noticed that none of the other participants yelled with them. As they sat down, a little embarrassed, Mike spoke back up. Mike. Thank you to those two, now, moving on. As Mike continued to talk, Izuku looked down at his hands. While they were mostly clean, he could still see the bruises forming from that morning. 2 hours earlier. All Might was walking towards the beach he had Izuku training on for 10 months. As he approached, he could hear someone yelling. Concerned, he rushed to the beach just to find a sight he never expected to see, a completely clean beach and a giant pile of trash with Izuku standing at the top, shirtless and yelling towards the sky. All Might. Holy super crap! He used his technique and transformed into his muscle form as Izuku began to fall from the trash pile. All Might. You did good, kid. After a few minutes, Izuku was standing and was facing All Might. All Might. Young Midoriya, not only did you do what I told you, you clean outside of the area as well. You've exceeded my expectations. I hereby deem you ready to inherit One for All. Izuku became excited. Izuku. Really? Alright, how does this work? All Might reached up to his own head, and plucked a hair out before holding it out to Izuku. All Might. Eat this. Present. Izuku gagged, remembering swallowing the hair. He also took notice that he hadn't felt any different from before, but then again, he didn't know what a quirk was supposed to feel like. Yelling. And your muttering is distracting others. If you don't take this seriously, then you should leave. Izuku turned to see a boy with dark blue hair and glasses. Izuku. Oh, sorry. Mike. You pose an excellent question that I was about to answer, but please don't be hostile to other examinees. Others will speak up if they're distracted. I see, I apologize. Move on. Mike. Now, as I was saying, the fourth robot is worth 0 points, so think of it as an obstacle you'll want to avoid. That's it, you can go range and get to your exam areas. Remember not to attack each other. Once he finished talking, the participants got up from their seats and left the auditorium. Once he got to the locker room, Izuku changed into a light green tracksuit and grabbed the cursed tools Nisa had given to him, a pair of metal tonfas. He unsealed them and could feel the cursed energy in them when he picked them up. Izuku. Even if the energy won't help against robots, these should still do the trick. He spun them in his grip before making his way to the exam area he was assigned. As he arrived, many other participants looked at him weird. He was the only one who brought weapons to the exam. The boy from before made his way over to Izuku. You there, why do you have weapons? Izuku. I had them registered. I trained with these so I know how to use them better than my fists. Oh, I apologize. The speakers then came to life. Mike. Hey, the exam's about to begin. Are you ready? 3. The gates to the fake city began to open. Mike 2. Izuku and the others prepared to rush in. Mike 1, go. The doors opened fully and the crowd rushed inside. Izuku managed to get ahead of the crowd and quickly found 2 one-pointers. They both swung at him, but he ducked under their large arms. He swung at the robot now closest to him, and managed to make a large dent in its head, shutting it down. He blocked a second attack from the remaining robot, getting pushed back. He then rushed back at it, sliding under its arm, swung a tonfa around, and jammed it into the robot. He then did the same with the other weapon, deactivating the robot. He stood up and began to run again. Izuku. 2 points already. Keep this up, Izuku. He proceeded to find more and more robots, building up a score of 42 points. He heard a yelp from nearby and ran to see what it was. He rounded a corner to find a short-haired blonde boy with steel blue eyes surrounded by 2 pointers and 3 pointers. Get away. Izuku muttering. I can't take them all with my tools and I don't know how to use One for All yet. My technique will do. He set the tonfas in a pair of belt loops on either side of his tracksuit and started to use his technique. Lightning covered his hands and he began to push more energy into his technique. Izuku. A spear would be best, but that would only get so many of them. Still my best option. As his lightning became viscous and moldable, he put his fists together by the pinkies and pulled apart, forming a spear in his right hand. Izuku. Here goes. He ran towards the cornered boy and threw his spear at the robots. He noticed the boy was able to see his lightning. As the robots were distracted, Izuku rushed in and grabbed the boy. Once they were several feet away, Izuku stopped and helped him up. Izuku. You okay? TCH. Yeah. And who are you? I don't recognize you from Tokyo. Izuku. That's because I was trained here. Izuku Midoriya, by the way. And you are? Nito Monoma. Izuku. Right. And I assume you know a way out of this situation? They both looked at the surviving robots that were headed their way. Monoma. Yeah, It was then Izuku heard crackling from next to him. He looked to see Monoma was holding a lightning spear of his own. Monoma. Like it? My quirk and technique are the same copy. Technique-wise, I can perfectly copy one application of another technique once as long as I've seen it and touched its user. Izuku smiled. Izuku. Alright then. He then formed his own spear. Izuku. 2 are better than 1, ready? Monoma. Yeah. Izuku/Monoma, yelling. Dual-pronged lightning spear. They threw both spears at the same time, destroying the remaining robots. Just as they did, they felt a rumbling and almost lost their footing. Hearing yelling, they turned around to see what they recognized as the zero-pointer sprite Mike used in his demonstration. Monoma. That is an obstacle. Izuku. Apparently. They heard a scream and looked at its treads to see a brown-haired girl trapped underneath rubble. Before Monoma could say a thing, Izuku rushed forward. As he ran, his mind was running a mile a minute. Izuku, damn it, how do I stop that thing? My technique won't out a dent in it, think one for all, but I don't know how to use it, doesn't matter, Nizu will get me healed. Here goes. As he approached the robot, his legs were suddenly filled with power. He jumped using 100% of his power, and immediately found himself face to face with the giant robot. His right arm filled with similar power as his legs were. Izuku yelling, smash. He swung his arm, the power releasing into the robot, crushing the head. With the threat stopped, he began to fall. Izuku. Okay. If I time another punch just right, I can land safely. Okay, here we go. SMA. A hand smacked him across the face. Suddenly, he was floating. Release. He fell to the floor and his adrenaline began to wear off. The pain from several broken bones setting in, making him begin to black out. Just before he did, however, he heard the buzzer for the exam go off, signifying its end. First day. Izuku and Mina once again stood in front of UA's front gates, dressed in UA's school uniform. It had been a few months since the entrance exam and now it was time for their time at UA to begin. Mina. You excited, Midori? Izuku let out a small laugh. Izuku. Yeah. I mean, it's been my dream to attend UA since I was 4. Mina. Yeah, I can say the same for me. Come on, let's go. She grabbed his arm and pulled him along with her past the gates and into the front doors of the building. After entering, she stopped, realizing she had no idea where to go. Mina. Did you just so happen to memorize the map they sent with our acceptance letters? Izuku shook his head. Izuku. No, I didn't. She hung her head and began to sulk. Mina. Izuku. But I did bring the one they sent me. Ashido perked up as he pulled it out of his pocket. Mina. Really? Yes. She raised her arms in celebration before Izuku opened the map. Izuku. Looks like we need to head right. He pointed to the hallway he meant and they began to walk, carefully navigating the hallways full of new and returning students. As they made their way through the school, Izuku thought back to when he had gotten his acceptance letter. Months prior. Izuku was sitting at the table in the Midoriya apartment when his mother came scrambling into the room and an envelope in her hands. Inko. Izuku, it's UA. She placed it in front of him on the table. Izuku. Wait, really? Inko nodded furiously. Inko. Go open it. Izuku grabbed it. Izuku right away. He left his seat and ran to his room to open it. He closed the door, sat down at his desk, and put the envelope down. Carefully, he picked it up again by the sides, but instead of ripping off the top, he pulled it apart, splitting the envelope down the middle. The few papers that were inside remained intact, but stayed with either half. He then noticed a small gray disc land on his desk. Beside, he could look at it more closely, a light shined from it, turning into a holographic projection with 2 familiar faces. All Might. We are here. Nizu. To inform you about your score on the exam. All Might, if you would. All Might. Right. To start this off, you did wonderful. You managed to gather 53 points all over your own. That alone is enough to get you in. Nizu. But there was another point system. Rescue points. What kind of heroic establishment would we be if we didn't reward selfless actions? 2 videos then replaced All Might and Niza. One of him helping Monoma, and the other of him using One for All to destroy the robot. Nizu. These 2 instances gained you 70 rescue points, bringing your total to 123. That's the highest score this year. All Might. Good job, young Midoriya. Don't get too courageous, however, there's still much for you to learn, about your quirk and about the world. Nizu. Now, before we end this message, there is something I need to tell you. On the first day, I need you to come to my office. The others will join you. That's all. See you on your first day. With that said, the device turned off. Izuku stared at the inactive disk for a few moments. Izuku. I got in. A large smile grew in his face. Izuku yelling. I got in. Present. Izuku and Mina stopped in front of a large door. Izuku. This is it. When do you think we should go see Nizu? Mina shrugged. Mina. He'll probably just call us through an announcement, or something. Izuku sighed. Izuku. He would, wouldn't he? Mina laughed, and patted his back. Mina. There's no need to be down, it's probably just something about how proud he is of us for getting in. Izuku smiled. Izuku. You're probably right. Anyway, we should head inside. He reached out to the door and twisted the handle, opening it. The pair immediately noticed Bakugo getting yelled at by the boy who called Izuku out during the exam. Quietly, they walked in and closed the door, quickly finding their way to a pair of empty seats. Izuku. I'm not looking forward to training with him. Mina looked at him curiously. Mina. Which one? Izuku. Both. She laughed a little before they both heard the door open. Looked to the door, they both saw a large, yellow, puffy object slither its way into the room. As it stood up, it gained the attention of the entire class. Turning to them, it was revealed to be a man in a sleeping bag. He unzipped the sleeping bag and kept it fall before squeezing a pouch of some kinds of snack into his mouth and tossing it into the trash. My name is Shota Aizawa, and I'm your homeroom teacher. He bent down and pulled a package from the bag. It was a blue tracksuit in a plastic package. Aizawa. These are your PE uniforms. I have boxes set up in the locker rooms. Go change and meet me outside. Midoriya Ashido. The 2 perked up as he looked at them. Aizawa. Nizu is ready to see you too. Go now and meet up with us later. Izuku/Ashido. Yes, sir. They then stood from their seats and exited the room, right behind Aizawa. Izuku pulled out the map again and Mina looked over his shoulder. Izuku. Looks like we need to go back down the hall, up the stairs, and then head straight. Mina. Well, let's get going. Izuku nodded and put the map away before leading the way to Nizu's office. After a couple minutes, they made it to the wooden doors that led to the principal's office. Before either of them could knock, the doors opened. Nizu. Come on in. They looked at each other before stepping inside. They both noticed Nizu sitting behind his desk and 3 other students, one of which Izuku recognized as Monoma. The other 2 were new to him, an orange-haired girl with a ponytail and a pink-haired girl with dreadlocks. Izuku and Mina approached Nizu's desk. Izuku. You wanted to see us, sir? Nizu. Yes, because I have some very important things to tell you all, but first things first, let me introduce you all. He gestured to Monoma. Nizu. This is Nito Monoma. Both his quirk and his technique are named Copy. Next was the orange-haired girl. Nizu. Itsuka Kendo. Quick is Big Fist and her technique is called Size, letting her change her size to whatever she wants. Just as he turned to introduce the other girl, she rushed over to the 2 herself. I'm Mei Hatsum. She began to feel their arms. Hatsum. My quirk is Zoom, it lets me see up to 5 kilometers away clearly. Nizu cleared his throat, making her back off momentarily. Nizu. Miss Hatsum. Since you're so eager, please tell us about your technique. Hatsum. Okay, it's called Inscribe. I can take bits of your cursed energy and infuse an object with it, letting whoever wields it use your technique until the energy runs out. It's obviously weaker than the actual technique, though. I can't wait to see what kind of babies I can make with lightning and acid. She began to giggle excitedly until Nizu cleared his throat. Nizu. Now for these two. He motioned towards Izuku and Mina. Nizu. Izuku Midoriya. His quirk is called Superpower. It's a powerful strength enhancer that accumulates strength over time. His technique is called Raijin. He can create lining on his hands and shape it into weapons. And finally, this is Mina Ashido. Her quirk is Alien. It's responsible for her physical mutations. Her technique is acid, though Hatsum already know that. She can make acid. Now all of you come here. They all gathered around Nizu's desk. Nizu. As you all know, compared to Tokyo and Kyoto, UA as a school doesn't have much sway in our world. You 5 are our first students, so we need to show that despite our lack of experience, we ain't just as capable as the other 2. Kendo. Sir, does that mean what I think it means? Nizu nodded. Nizu. While studying to be heroes, there will be days where you will be taken out of class to go on missions. And I must warn you all, the other 2 schools aren't fans of our emergence. It's no secret that rivalries in Jujutsu society can get bloody, so keep your eyes out and have each other's backs. If you need any updates to your uniforms, come to me directly. And Hatsum. Hatsum. Yes? Nizu. I'm counting on you to get us a good stockpile of cursed tools. She gave him a salute. Hatsum. Yes, sir, this babies will be so good the other schools will wish they had me. Nizu. Good. You all will be going on missions in pairs, but your partners will be decided based on experience and difficulty, not personal preference, so please do get along. Nizu, that is all. Missions begin next week. Get to class. With that said, the group left his office and split up, going back to their respective classrooms. When Izuku and Mina made it back, they found that they had actually missed what their class had done outside. Their high school and sorcerer careers had just begun. Inconvenient Mission PT-1. It had been a week since school started for Class 1A, and this day was special. It would mark their first practical heroics lesson, which would also mean a new teacher to meet. Mr. Aizawa had been handling the paper side of being a pro hero, laws and safety precautions, but he wouldn't be giving the physical lessons. The class was nearly vibrating out of excitement when the door slid open violently. After their first day, they had learned that Nizu had the doors changed between sliding and hinged whenever he wanted. From the door stepped an All Might, wearing an older, caped costume. All Might. I am here, coming through the door like a hero. As the class gasped and marveled at their teacher being the symbol of peace, he made his way to the front of the class. He then turned to face them. All Might. Welcome to your first practical lesson in heroics. I will be your teacher for these lessons. For today we will be covering. He reached into a pocket and pulled out a card, showing it to the class. All Might, combat training. Most of the class got excited, though a few looked nervous. Izuku couldn't see him, but he knew Bakugo was the most enthusiastic about this lesson. All Might pressed a button and 20 slots in the wall opened up, revealing numbered cases. All Might. And what is a hero without their costume? Using the design requests you all submitted, UA had official support companies make these. Izuku and Mina both noticed that their cases weren't there. Suddenly, the intercom system crackled to life. Nizu. Could Izuku Midoriya and Mei Hatsum come to the principal's office? Izuku sighed and stood up. All Might. It appears young Midoriya might not be joining us. Go on, you can catch up in the next combat exercise. Izuku nodded before making his way out of the room. He was able to quickly get to Nizu's office, finding Hatsum at the door when he arrived. Izuku. Mission time? Hatsum. Probably, let's go. She swung the door open and walked inside, Izuku following close behind. The two approached Nizu's desk. Hatsune. We're here, Nizu, sir. Nizu looked up from a stack of papers he was going through and seemed to smile. Nizu. Good. We have reports of 3 cursed spirits that have taken up residence in an apartment building. Izuku. TH3? Nizu nodded. Nizu. I believe you two are capable of dealing with them. I'll have someone drop you off, but for now. He clicked a button below his desk and 2 panels on top moved out of the way, letting 2 cases rise. Izuku recognized them as the cases the hero costumes were in. Nizu, put on your uniforms and meet your driver in the side parking lot. You'll know him when you see him. Izuku, yes, sir. Do we know their grades? Nizu, we know for sure that 2 of them are grade 3. The other one is unknown. I still believe you can do this. Now go, I'm counting on you. Izuku nodded, grabbed his case, and left the room. Izuku was standing outside, adjusting the respirator on his mouth as he heard the door open. He turned to see Hatsum walk out. She was wearing what looked to be the ordinary jujutsu uniform, though there were a few differences, the first of which was the lack of sleeves. She also wore some sort of headgear with goggles and another device that Izuku wasn't sure what was. It looked like a belt of some kind that was wrapped around her stomach and had 2 protrusions, one on each of her sides. Hatsum, ready? Izuku nodded. Izuku, yeah. Hatsum then walked past him. Hatsum, then let's get going, I want to get back as soon as possible. Izuku, right. He quickly caught up to her, and they began to look around the parking lot. Soon they found a man in a suit standing next to a black car and approached him. May Hatsum and Izuku Midoriya? Izuku, that's us, sir. The man nodded. Get in. The 2 sorcerers got into the car and the man entered the driver's seat. We'll be there in 20 minutes, prepare. He then turned on the car and began to drive. Izuku, Hatsum, if I may. What are those things? Hatsum immediately perked up. Hatsum, these are my babies. She touched the goggles. Hatsum, these babies help me with my quirk while I can see 5 kilometers. Sometimes I need a little extra with these. I can see up to 6 kilometers in infrared. She then gestured to the unknown device. Hatsum, and this baby is my grappler belt. It can shoot 2 grappling hooks and retract them at high speeds. Izuku, that's really cool. My uniform has a respirator and some lights. Hatsum, I could upgrade them if you want. Izuku, really? She nodded. Hatsum, just come see me in the workshop when you want it done. The 2 kept talking until the car stopped. I'll put up the veil, you 2 do your thing. He stepped out, crossed his fingers and began chanting, though Izuku couldn't hear what he was saying. He saw a dark, shadowy dome descend around them and the building. Hatsum, oh, one more thing before we get out. Izuku, yeah? What is it? Hatsum reached out and grabbed his hand for a moment. Izuku Hatsum. She then let go and pulled back. Izuku could see cursed energy connecting their hands like a sticky goo. Soon the connection was severed, though the cursed energy remained on Hatsum's hand. Hatsum, this is my technique. She then touched her grappler belt, which then became covered in it. She powered on the device, which crackled with lightning. She grinned ear to ear. Hatsum, your technique is perfect for my babies. We need to finish fast so I can try it on more. She rushed out of the car and Izuku followed, though he was going slower than she was. Inconvenient Mission PT2. The apartment building looked to be 7 stories tall and, oddly enough, in use. As Izuku and Hatsum approached the building, Izuku noticed more and more out-of-place features around them. A store that looked to be thriving, recently fixed potholes, and other clear signs of population. Izuku, Hatsum? The pink-haired girl stopped at the doorway to the building and turned back to face him. Hatsum, yeah? Izuku, although curses usually manifested in places with built-up negative emotions like dilapidated neighborhoods, but this block seems to be the opposite of that. Hatsum looked around curiously. Hatsum, you're right. Oh well, they probably just moved in. Izuku, they can do that? She nodded before turning back to the door. Hatsum, yeah, now come on, we should hurry this up. Izuku, right. They both entered the building and approached the front desk, which was empty. Izuku, I wonder what the residents and workers were told to get them to leave. Anyway, where should we look? Hatsum out her hand to her chin and looked up before looking at him, and shrugging. Hatsum. No clue, we just gotta search. I'll start at the top and move down to the 4th floor. You start at the 3rd and move down to the basement. Izuku. The basement? Why me? Hatsum. That way there's only one way out. If one tries to escape out a window I can give chase, but down there, you can let loose. I'll start now, good luck. She then ran back outside. Izuku watched as 2 metal hooks shot out of her belt, and his electricity surrounded the device. They rocketed upwards and out of sight. Izuku then sighed and made his way to the stairs. Izuku. Alright, first time being left alone on a mission. You can do it. He quickly climbed his way up to the 3rd floor and took note of the 14 apartments before walking to the far end of the hallway and facing the first apartment. Izuku. Apartment 42. Seems a good place to start. He tried to open the door just to find it was locked. Izuku. Who has time to lock their door during an evacuation order? He coated his fist in cursed energy before punching next to the doorknob, breaking it and letting him open the door. Izuku. A little breaking and entering never hurt anyone. He stepped inside to find a neat-looking apartment. An organized kitchen with 0 dishes in the sink, freshly emptied trash cans, not a speck of dust anywhere. He searched the entire apartment but found no sign of a cursed spirit. He moved on to the next apartment, which wasn't locked, and found it was largely the same. Again and again he entered apartments that looked almost exactly the same. Clean, spotless, no signs of dirt, like no one ever lived there at all. It wasn't until Izuku reached apartment 12 on the 1st floor that anything changed. He opened the door and walked inside. This time he could tell the apartment was freshly cleaned. The scent of cleaning supplies wafted into his nose. He couldn't take it in for long when he heard a noise come from the bedroom. Yue! Kui! He cautiously opened the door to see a short, rotund, dark blue cursed spirit laying on the floor in what seemed to be pain. He kneeled down in front of it. From what he could tell, it definitely looked like a 3rd-grade cursed spirit, but he couldn't sense enough cursed energy to power a 4th grade. Izuku. What happened here? Knowing he wouldn't get an answer from the curse, fully powered or not, he coated his hand in lightning and placed it on the spirit's head, frying and killing it instantly. Izuku. 1 down. Hope Hatsum found another. He quickly left the apartment and continued his search, though he didn't find any other spirits on the 1st floor, only more perfect apartments. He finally made his way over to the basement door and slowly opened it, revealing that the lights were already on. Izuku. At least this makes my job easier. He made his way down the stairs to find an open basement. The far corners were used as washing and drying stations in case the tenants' machines broke down, and there was a single door leading to another room, more than likely where the electrical and water access points were. Other than that, there were shelves with various items along the walls, but nothing else. Suddenly, the lights flickered and turned off. Clean. Izuku, wa. Dirty. Izuku activated his technique, creating some light for himself to see. Almost immediately, a feather duster was swiped over his hand and his technique was deactivated. Yelling filthy. He felt the duster swipe at his back. It was then he realized what was happening. Izuku. This curse, it's wiping away my cursed energy, it's trying to clean away the impurity. He activated his technique again and began to throw his lightning. He couldn't get a good look at the curse as it sped between attacks, wiping them clean as fast as Izuku could throw them. Izuku, this curse, it's trying to wear me down. It can think, and it had a purpose. This must be the unknown curse Niza mentioned. Before he could throw another bit of lightning, a force harder than Izuku had felt before hit him in the side, sending him into a nearby wall that he bounced off. He was now laid on the floor. Izuku, I can't see it, and it deletes my attacks before I can guess where it's going next. Maybe one for all can buy me time? No, I can't risk destroying the building. I can't do this alone. Where's Hatsum? Izuku activated his technique and rolled out of the way of a powerful kick, though his technique was quickly wiped away. He got to his feet and just began to run around the basement. Izuku, come on, think there has to be a way. Hatsum is probably double-checking her floors and mine before coming down here. How can I stop this thing from moving? Just a couple seconds will do. A bright red fist made contact with Izuku's stomach, making him tumble back. Knowing a second attack would come, he rolled backwards and launched himself into the air just for a foot to break the concrete where he jumped from. Izuku, if this thing is obsessed with cleaning, then I should just make a mess. Like Hatsum said, I can let loose down here. As soon as he landed, he activated his technique. Izuku, use it. Contain it. Make more. Force yourself to hold it. He clasped his hands together, making his generated lightning cycle through his body as he made more and more. Then, he hit his limit. Izuku curse technique, yelling thundercloud. From his body, an uncountable amount of bolts of lightning stuck, landing on the walls, ceiling, floor, shelves, everything. The room became filled with his lightning and his cursed energy. The spirit became visible. It was nearly 8 feet tall, covered in red scales and wearing what looked to be a blue janitor's uniform. A feather duster in one hand and sharp claws on the other. It began to speed around the room, attempting to neutralize all the cursed energy. Clean curse. Clean, 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 clean. Filthy, all dirty. Perfect, no filth. As it tried, it too would be hit. For every bolt it cleaned, 3 more struck it. It darted around, trying to clean the room, trying to rid the basement of filth, but it wouldn't succeed. In the end, it was overwhelmed by the sheer amount of lightning. In the end, it was fried inside and out. As it began to fade away, the basement door opened. Hatsum. Midoriya? Didn't I tell you to start here and go up? She walked down the stairs as the lights finally flickered back to life. As they did, the spirit fully faded away and Izuku collapsed from exhaustion. USJPT-1. A week had passed since Izuku and Hatsum were sent on their mission. By its description, Nisa deducted that instead of being 3rd grade like the other two, the cursed spirit Izuku ran into was around 2nd grade. Due to this discovery, Izuku got a promotion up to 2nd grade, making him the 2nd student at UA to get that classification, Monoma being the 1st. Now, he was sitting inside of 1A's classroom, ready to actually participate in a practical lesson. The door opened, but instead of All Might, Aizawa walked through and over to the front podium. Aizawa. Hello class. Today's lesson will be a bit different than normal. We'll be going off campus for. He pulled out a card and showed it to the class. Aizawa. Rescue training? All Might should meet us there, and Recovery Girl is also coming. You can choose to wear your costumes or not, you aren't used to them and they could get in the way. Mineta raised his hand. Aizawa. Yes, Mineta? Mineta. Sir, we didn't get to do a combat lesson with Midoriya yet, so why are we doing rescue? Aizawa. Midoriya has already been briefed on the lesson and given his own combat trial. Mineta. Can we watch it? Aizawa. No, now go get ready. The class did as told them and got up. Izuku looked over to Mina, who nodded, walked over to her case, and grabbed it. Izuku did the same. The class gathered outside near a bus. Izuku noticed Recovery Girl standing off to the side. AMB walked over. Recovery Girl. Ah, young Midoriya. Can I help you, Sonny? Izuku. Not really, I just to ask why you're coming. I'm sure you'll be needed here. She just waved his words off. Recovery Girl. Nisa can handle it while I'm gone. I'm not the only one who can use RCT on others, you know. Izuku. RCT, that's positive cursed energy, right? She nodded. Recovery Girl. It is, but it's very, very complicated. Izuku. Really? Recovery Girl. Even if I described it, you wouldn't understand. It feels different for everyone. Ida. Everyone get on the bus in an orderly fashion. Recovery Girl. Well, time to go. She turned away and climbed onto the bus, and Izuku followed. Izuku sat down in one of the middle seats that faced the other side, and Mina sat next to him. Aizawa climbed on, got in the driver's seat, and began to drive away from UA. Part of the way through the drive, Tsuyu Ajui, also known as Tsu by Tai class, spoke up. Tsu. Midoriya. Izuku looked up at her. Izuku. Yeah, Ajui? Tsu. First of all, call me Tsu. Second, we haven't seen you a whole lot during activities using our quirks. Why is that? Izuku smiled. AMD scratched the back of his head. Izuku. Bad luck, I guess. Kirishima. What is your quirk anyway, Midoriya? Izuku. Oh, it's called superpower. It's a strength enhancer. Truthfully, I can't really handle its full power, but right now it's all or nothing when I activate it. Kaminari. You can't handle it? What does that mean? Izuku. I break my bones when I use it. That'll stop once I really get a grip on how to limit myself, though. Kaminari. Man, that sucks. So your quirk is pretty much a last resort, huh? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Yeah. But in return, it's really powerful. I crushed the zero-pointer's head with a punch. Jiru. Wait, really? That thing was giant. Before anyone else could comment, Aizawa stopped the bus. Aizawa. Quiet down and get off, we're here. The class got off with Recovery Girl and Aizawa following after them. In front of the class was a large domed building and a space suit wearing hero. Uraraka. Oh my god, it's 13, the rescue hero, she's so cool. 13 approached the class. 13. Welcome Class 1A, my name is 13 and this is the USJ. She gestured towards the facility behind her. 13. It's also known as the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. I created it to train students like you how to save lives, especially during different disasters. Follow me inside. She waved them over as the doors opened and led them inside. The inside was large and spacious with 6 different disaster zones. 13. Between shipwrecks and devastating earthquakes, the USJ will prepare you for several rescue scenarios. Aizawa walked over and began whispering to 13, though Izuku couldn't make out what was being said. It was then Izuku, Mina, and Recovery Girl felt a surge of cursed energy. All 3 looked out towards the center of the USJ to see a swirling purple portal appear, and what appeared to be thugs began pouring out. Kirishima. Oh hey, you even got fake villains, cool. Aizawa / Recovery Girl. Those are real. The 2 got in front of the students. Aizawa. 13, you and Recovery Girl will stay here and protect the students. He pulled his goggles up and gripped his capture tool. It was then Izuku saw it, the cursed energy covering both items. Aizawa may not have been a sorcerer, but he could definitely fight curses if he needed to. Aizawa leapt down the stairs as the final 3 villains emerged. The one who made the portal seemed to be made of a visible mist. A skinny man with hands all over his body looked to be giving out orders, and a large monster-looking man that was leaking cursed energy. Mina grabbed Izuku's arm. Mina. Come on. Mr. Aizawa can handle them. Izuku. Yeah. He and Mina both regrouped with the rest of the class. Just as they did, however, the Mist Man appeared in front of them. Mist. Oh, All Might isn't here? And we went through all this trouble to kill him. Do any of you know where his is? No matter, killing a few of you is bound to pull him out of hiding. 13 raised her hands and prepared to use her quirk when Bakugo and Kirishima leapt in. Bakugo, yelling. Shut your trap. 13 no. The 2 boys attacked the villain but missed because the mist. Mist. Good instincts and power. You really are UA students. Unfortunately for you, unlike UA, we don't feel the need to hide our power. 2 arms escaped from the mist and touched the fingers of the other while not touching palms, making a triangle, though the index and pinky fingers weren't touching. Mist. Domain expansion, warped cloud. USJPT2. Izuku and the rest of the class watched as from behind the misty villain, a sheet of black appeared, creating a dome similar to the veil the sorcerer placed around the apartment building, only this one wasn't transparent. As soon as the barrier closed, the ground became covered with the same mist that covered the villain. Bakugo, yelling. The hell? 13. This is bad. Izuku looked to Mina. Izuku. What is this? Mina. It's the pinnacle of Jujutsu. The ability to bring your innate domain into reality. It's imbued with his technique. Izuku. Innate domain? You mean like that Mindskate thing? She nodded. Mina. Yeah, and it makes it nearly impossible to avoid the technique. And without a domain on our side to disrupt it, we're at a big disadvantage. Mineta. Guys? The class turned to look at him just to see that their shorter classmate was sinking into the mist. Izuku immediately leapt into action, jumping towards the boy and tackling him away from the area he was in. Mineta, Midoriya. Izuku. Keep moving, he can make portals in the mist. He tossed Mineta away and rolled in the other direction. Mist. Oh? We have a smart little pest in our midst. How did you know my gates weren't a quirk? Izuku didn't answer, instead shouting again. Izuku yelling. Move or die. Mist. Who said anything about killing? I just want to have a little fun. The rest of the class and the heroes followed Izuku's advice and started running around the domain. Bakugo yelling. If we get him, this'll stop, right? Then leave him to me. He launched himself at the villain with an explosion. Mist, good idea. A portal appeared in between Bakugo, and two more appeared at the other end of the domain. Bakugo couldn't stop himself and went through the first portal. The others turned to look at the two other portals to see two Bakugos come through. Mist. Lackluster execution. Both landed, but only one looked surprised. Bakugo. The buck? The other laughed. Warped Bakugo. What? You don't recognize your own face? What a joke. Recovery girl. Oh my. Izuku. Recovery girl. If the domain was messed with, would that disappear? Recovery girl. Probably. Before they could keep talking, Bakugo's clone let off an explosion and rocketed towards Izuku. Warped Bakugo, yelling. I'll start with you, Deku. Izuku raised his arms and reinforced them with cursed energy as the fake threw an explosion at him. He was thrown back as the explosion ripped through the reinforcement. Izuku, damn it. His attacks are all made with cursed energy, meaning Bakugo's mastery of his quirk translated into his clone's proficiency with cursed energy. He rolled out of the way of another attack. Izuku, that also means it's made of cursed energy, and is probably more akin to a cursed spirit than a human, meaning yelling. Everyone let me, Ishido, and Recovery Girl handle any clones. You focus on the villain. He stood and ignited his lightning. Kaminari. But why? Recovery Girl. Just do it. The false Bakugo charged at Izuku again, but he was ready this time. The fake went for a right hook, which Izuku was able to sidestep. He then punched the replica in the stomach with his lightning and the warped clone disappeared in a puff of mist. Izuku fragile. They're glass cannons. Which means the real danger is their power, and how many of them there can be. Bakugo, yelling. If they're that weak, then you can have them. He blasted towards the villain again. Missed. Once again, you have terrible execution. A portal opened in front of Bakugo, but he stopped himself before going through it. Bakugo. Think again. Missed. It wasn't meant for you. He heard a scream and out from the portal came Kirishima, who tackled him. Izuku heard a thump next to him, and when he looked, Kirishima was on the ground. Kirishima. What happened? Izuku. You got cloned. They watched as Bakugo began fighting Kirishima's clone, but to no effect. Kirishima. Dang. If even Bakugo can't damage it, then what hope do we have? Recovery Girl then appeared next to the two boys. Recovery Girl. I know how to get us a little breathing room, but I'll have to stay still. He won't be able to target me, but those things will. As she finished talking, a clone of Kaminari charged at them. Izuku activated his technique and blocked its attack. Both sources of electricity started to clash and Izuku was slowly losing ground. Izuku, of course it would be better than mine, he's been using his all his life. But let's see how he handles this. He surged his lightning just enough to push back Kaminari and began to shape his lightning. Izuku, you want a contest of sparks? He formed a lightning sword. Izuku, then you'll get one. The two charged at each other and clashed their electricity again, only this time Izuku's cut clean through. Izuku, too bad mine's sharper. The clone faded away. Izuku turned back to protect Recovery Girl just to see her cut down two clones using her cane. Izuku, how'd you do that? Recovery Girl smirked. Recovery girl. Positive cursed energy is like poison to cursed spirits. One touch and they're gone. Now protect me. Izuku nodded as she crouched down and held her cane like a sword. Recovery girl. New shadow style, simple domain. In a small circle around her, the mist covering the ground dissipated. Izuku looked around, noticed the portals weren't acting right either. Mist yelling, "What have you done?" Izuku. Wouldn't have a domain expansion of your own been better? Recovery girl shook her head. Recovery girl. While I do have one, his is much more refined than mine. I would be dominated in moments. I can keep this up for far longer. Now, Midoriya, the inside shell of a domain barrier is resistant to attacks, not immune. You have great physical power. Use it while we are safe from his portals. Izuku. But protecting you. Recovery girl. I'll be fine, not that I know how his domain works. Go now before he strips away my simple domain. Izuku nodded. Izuku. Kirishima, Ashido, protect recovery girl. They both ran over and nodded as Izuku sprinted over to a wall. Mist yelling, "Do not!" A large portal began swirling in the air above the class. Mist yelling, "Warp severing!" The portal began to descend on the class as Izuku neared the edge. Izuku. Alright. Just gotta use both. He wound his arm back, filling it with the power of One for All. The portal quickly moved down, stopping at his waist. Mist yelling, "Fill my gates with your guts!" The portal began to close as Izuku filled his fist with cursed energy. Recovery girl, yelling, "Now!" Izuku threw his fist forward. Izuku yelling, "Smash!" He punched the barrier with the full power of One for All and his cursed energy. His arm broke instantly as the mist swirled with the wind pressure. In an instant, the barrier cracked and shattered. The large portal fizzled out and the domain disappeared, including the clones. Bakugo, yelling, "You're mine now!" Using the villain's distracted state, he tackled the villain to the ground. But that wasn't what Izuku was worried about. He was looking down the stairs at something he didn't expect could happen. The monstrous man was pinning Aizawa to the ground.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.